Greetings and welcome to week 11. For your 8th journal of this semester, you answered the question that was based on the quote by John F. Kennedy about whether we can solve problems. And it was asked to get you to think about constructivism and about whether, if the problems that we face are man-made, if we can solve them. Not manage them, but solve them. For the last 4 weeks of the course, we're going to be focusing on 8 goals that were set at the beginning of this century by the United Nations. They are called the Millennium Development Goals. The purpose, the overarching purpose, is to eradicate extreme poverty around the world. Each week we're going to do 2 of the 8. So for the last 4 weeks we will be focusing on those 8 goals. This first week we are going to be focusing on Millennium Development Goals, or generally I'll just call them MDG Goals 1 and 2. The first one is to eradicate extreme hunger and poverty. There are 1 billion people around the world who live on $1 a day or less. That is considered extreme poverty. And so these people wake up each morning, they don't know where their survival is coming from. They don't know where their next meal is coming from. They live literally day by day. So the goal to be reached by 2015 is to eradicate extreme hunger and poverty. The second goal is about education, and to provide universal education for every man, woman, and child on the earth. And so that goal, once again, and all the Millennium Development Goals are to be reached by the year 2015, hopefully. At least that was the objective when they were created in 2000. So our first 2 goals are eradicate extreme poverty and hunger and provide universal primary education. So that's what we'll focus on this week from a content perspective. A special part of our course is that in my master's program that I did a couple years ago, many of my classmates actually work in the fields that are defined by the Millennium Development Goals. And so this week you are going to see a friend of mine named Jonathan Veitch, who works for UNICEF and who is the project director in Kyrgyzstan right now for UNICEF. And this man has done incredible things the world over to help children lead better, healthier lives. So he's going to speak to you about Millennium Development Goal number 1. As we go on through the next 4 weeks, other classmates of mine will speak to you about their specialty and how it relates to the Millennium Development Goals that we are studying for that week. From a situation brief, current event perspective, we are going to talk about Darfur. And we do not have a situation brief in your booklet as we've had every other week this semester. This situation brief is really an interactive by a group called the Council on Foreign Relations. And the focus of the interactive and the focus of our situation brief this week is Darfur. Darfur, long before humanitarian intervention occurred in Libya, Darfur was the focus for much of the international community, and the international community wrestled for years with the idea of how do we protect civilians in the Sudan, in the western part of the country, in Darfur. And you will see the roots of the conflict in Darfur. You will see the role of the government. You will see the role of the people who are suffering at the hands of the government. You will see the action or lack thereof of the international community, and you will be introduced to a new idea. The idea is called the responsibility to protect. And what the responsibility to protect essentially says is that sovereignty, as we've dealt with it throughout our course, sovereignty has been a privilege. You control the land within your borders. You're free to do what you want within those borders if you are the ruling party or if you are the ruler. Responsibility to protect says something different. It changes sovereignty. And it says that sovereignty is not just a privilege, it's a responsibility to protect the people within your borders. And if you cannot do that, or even worse, if you actively are harming the people within your borders, then the responsibility to protect falls on the international community. So for years, activists, government officials, intergovernmental officials were asking for there to be a no-fly zone set up in Darfur, for the United Nations to step in to protect the civilians that were being massacred at the hands of the government. It didn't happen to a large degree. So that brings up different questions, especially in light of what's happened in Libya in the last month or so. So, to recap, we are going to talk about Millennium Development Goals with the question echoing from week 8 in our head: can problems be solved by man, by humankind? Can we solve the problems that we face? The goal of the Millennium Development Goals is to do just that. And not only do it, but do it within the next 4 years, and do it by 2015. So we'll deal with Millennium Development Goals number 1 and 2, and then for your situation brief, we will study Darfur with specific attention paid to this idea of the responsibility to protect and the change that it would make to sovereignty and to the international system. We are doing, finally, our last quiz on world geography, this time with the countries of East Asia. I believe that there are 16. They are on your weekly assignments, the list of all the countries that you will need to know. Kids at Graded will take that on next week, Monday, April, whatever next Monday is, and then kids in New Wilmington will take it whenever Mr. Joel has you take the quiz, okay? I thank you for your attention to the course. I thank you for the work that you're doing. I very much enjoyed reading your journals and seeing you improve as writers and as thinkers, and I look forward to the next 4 weeks. Take care, have a good week, and I'll see you online.